Hi Yardners, it's Destry. Welcome back to my yard. Today I'm doing a more formal July garden tour. So stick around and I'll show you all the beautiful things that are blooming in my Oregon garden. All right, Yardners, so we're gonna start in this kind of corner of my yard. And I've got to start with my limelight hydrangea. So it is from Proven Winners. It's blooming its head off right now. And you can see even some of the blooms are starting to get that little bit of a pink hue. This is the first year I've had it in the ground and it's absolutely doing amazing. So I'm very, very happy with how the hydrangea is blooming this year. Next to that, we have some dahlias that are for kind of my cutting patch of dahlias. So this is a new one to me this year. I can't tell you that I know the names of all of them, but then this one here, look at this. This one I've had in the ground for a couple years. It's this beautiful pink color. And check this one out. Again, I love using these in arrangements. I just think they're really, really beautiful. I'm going to head back here and show you what's on my tour right now. If you can look closely, I've got some birdhouse gourds that are making their way up my tour. And this is the first year I've planted gourds, and so far so good. I think they could be getting a little bit more sun, but they seem to be doing really well in this little corner. Behind me, I've got my peonies plant that is done blooming for the year, but the foliage is looking really healthy, and I feel like every year it gets a little bit bigger and bigger. Another dahlia that's getting ready to bloom. And then back here is my gorgeous Japanese maple. So I actually started this Japanese maple as a little sapling. It was probably about this big. And you can see it's been in the ground now for probably about 4 or 5 years. And now it's just really full and beautiful. And I love the kind of purple hue that it gives to this space. So let's go ahead and walk this way. And I've got my lavender here, which is actually going into its second round of blooming. I deadheaded everything, and you can see I'm getting a few more new blooms here. I've got a volunteer sunflower hanging out here too, and then more dahlias here in the back. So check this one out. It's absolutely gorgeous. One that's new to me this year. And I just love these blooms and the kind of tricolor of the yellow and the pink. I just think they're looking really beautiful. Here in this area, we've got my zinnia patch. These are a coral zinnia from, or I'm sorry, a salmon zinnia from Johnny Seed Company. And I actually grew them from seed this year, and they're amazing for cutting. So I'm really enjoying using them in arrangements this year. Going this direction, a couple more things. I call this my cat's garden bed, and you can kind of see why. I've got my cat sculpture back here kind of hanging out. And then right in front of that, I've got my hostas, and they are in full bloom right now. I know some people don't care for hosta flowers, but I just think that they're really, really beautiful. These hostas are getting a little bit of sun this year, more so than normal, because we did have a tree back here that we had to cut down. But this lilac is filling in, and it will eventually provide a little bit more shade for those hostas. But I still think that they're doing really well in this area. Over here, this is the entrance to what I call my secret garden. And so we will check this out next, and I'll show you some of the awesome things that I have planted up in there. Hey there. So this is what I call my secret garden. And the reason I call it that is because of this butterfly bush. During this time of year, it's in full bloom and it just creates this canopy. I also have a little stepping path here and some really fun shade plants back in this area. So let me show you what I've got. Let's start with this salvia. I planted this one last year. It's a perennial salvia, and you can see it's just gotten enormous. It's just looking so pretty right now with these purple flowers. If we continue back, I've got a fuchsia here that I planted in the ground, and it is loving the shade right now. Behind that, we've got another hosta blooming. And then these three kind of big leafed plants here, these are called a bear's breeches. And they will eventually bloom up with a big bloom stalk. And they've got a really interesting bloom. And so probably in another month or so, they will be blooming. I've got some heucheras here that are doing really, really well. And so a couple, like I said, more shade plants. So we're going to go ahead and work our way past the secret garden if I can find my way through. And we'll go to sort of my newest garden bed. So this area, this whole area here used to be where our chicken run was. So we had several chickens and we decided to rehome them. So let me show you what's growing in this space. So this is the back corner of my yard, and you can see it's where we store our firewood. Over here, I've got some Dusty Miller, and it's looking really, really healthy. It does get quite a bit of sun in this area, but I'm really happy with how it's doing. And I like using it in arrangements for that really beautiful kind of bluish, silvery hue. And then back here, I've got one, two, three of these guys here. Now I have to grab the tag because I always forget the names of these ones. Forgive me. These are a hellebore. That's right, hellebore. So these are ones that will bloom when the weather is a bit cooler. This is a volunteer rose, some sort of climbing rose that I didn't plant. It's just sort of come back or come up. So I'm waiting to see if it actually will bloom. I'm really not sure what it's going to do there. All right, so heading this way, I've got another hosta here. I've got a beautiful fern and a brennera. So this brennera, again, I love these broad leaves. It gets quite a bit of sun here, but so far it's doing well. This area gets morning sun and afternoon shade. I've got a foxtail fern here that I just planted up. Again, this bed is really new to me. And so I just love how soft these foxtail ferns are. And I'm hoping this one will really like fill in this area. Heading this way, I've got a coral bells heuchera, or what's called coral bells. And it's got that beautiful purple foliage. It's got a nice bloom to it. And then behind it is a Daphne. And again, planted new this year, but it has that lovely smelling flower in the early spring. Let's see, what else do we have back here? Oh, this one here. This one's really fun. It's called a Jacob's Ladder. And I love the variegation on the foliage. Again, I think it's a really pretty one and it's doing really, really well in that area. I did plant up some columbine this year too, so I've got a few different patches of that. And then of course, a few geraniums that give a little pop of color to this space as well. We've got another fern back here, and check out this coleus. It has such a beautiful color. I'm hoping to do some propagation of some of my coleus soon, and I just love this plant. We've got some mint here in a pot, of course, because you wouldn't want to put mint in your landscape necessarily because it's pretty invasive, at least here in my area. And yeah, that kind of completes this area. You can see I'm definitely still like working on this space and developing it. I have a lot more room for more plants, so that's really exciting. So tell me in the comments, which one of these plants do you gravitate towards? Which one do you like the best? I have a question for you. Have you ever seen a butterfly bush this large? Only in Oregon, I think. I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, but would you see a butterfly bush that's basically as big as a house? You guys, this butterfly bush was here when we moved into this property, but I have to say it's one of the features of my yard and I absolutely love it. Next to it, I've underplanted it with some blueberry bushes, and they are a few years old now and they give us a great harvest of blueberries. You can see I've still got some here that I need to harvest even in mid-June. I did go ahead and put a planter here in the middle of this bed, and it is planted up with petunias. And I did have some supertunias down here in this drift as well. And you can see I've sheared those back to try to get a second flush of blooms from them. And so hopefully within the next few weeks and some fertilizing, they will come back and give me another flush of blooms. Underneath this gorgeous rhododendron plant, which again is one of the grandfather plants of my yard, it's interplanted with bleeding hearts. So these come back year after year, and you can see lots of them are still putting out fresh blooms, but they are kind of tired in the heat of the summer. But I love them when they first come out in the spring. They're one of the first things that blooms in my garden, and they're really, really beautiful. So this is one of my veggie garden beds where I have got my tomatoes and some squash. So let's take a look and see what's happening with some edible plants. You can see my tomato cages. I get these real big ones because tomatoes just go crazy, don't they, you guys? Especially if it's an indeterminate tomato. So you can see I've got some slicing tomatoes here and a few that are ripening up. I see some that hopefully we can have on some hamburgers soon. I've got some cherry tomatoes back here. These are the Sun Golds. They're my kids and I's absolute favorite. And then back behind that, we've got some squash. So this is all zucchini here. You can see I've got a few that are on the vine, but we're pretty good about harvesting them as we go. And yeah, lots of good edibles here in this garden bed. So coming this way, this is where I've kind of kept my collection of topiaries. So I've got my little window box here with some nasturtium and more geraniums that are doing okay in the heat. And then I've got my kind of my topiary collection here with, of course, this little bit of yard art. Got to have a little bit of yard art in there as well. So we're going to go ahead and head to the next area behind me, and I'll show you what I've got going on over there. So I just recently kind of redid this area a little bit. I've got my funky art wall, which is really fun. And then on this side, I have this raised garden bed with some coleus and sort of what I would call some fall color scheme. I'll link the video to when I planted this up. It goes more into detail about the plants that are here. On this side, we've got green beans, and then I just recently planted up some squash and did my second succession planting of snap peas. So I'm hoping these will pop up from the ground really soon and travel up the scaffolding that I have here. And they're so delicious. So again, I'll link that video that tells more about this space. All right, Yardners, we've got a whole new space to check out over here, starting with some beautiful potted plants near my greenhouse. Let's go check out my cut flower garden. So let's head this way and see what I've got going on here. My Shasta daisies are pretty much done blooming. In fact, I've been starting to deadhead them already, but I just kind of wanted to leave some of the blooms on there to show you how big my kind of patch of Shasta daisies has gotten. They're just really easy to divide, great perennial if you're looking for a good perennial. Next to that, I do have some Russian sage that's come back from last year. It's doing really, really well, and I love, again, anything purple I really gravitate towards. Next to that, we have some dahlias that are getting ready to pop. And next to that, we've got some catmint. So this catmint here, honestly, I'm probably going to go ahead and shear this back so that I can try to get another flush of blooms. It's pretty much done with its bloom cycle, and I've noticed the pollinators kind of have stopped visiting it, and that's my cue that it's time to give it a haircut. Next to that, we have a beautiful calla lily. I haven't got a lot of blooms off this one, but you can see kind of hiding back here, there is one really beautiful bloom. And I don't know, tell me in the comments, do you have much luck with calla lilies? It did return for me, so that was good. And I do love the foliage. Next to that, we have a pincushion flower, and it's this beautiful light lavender color. And I even love how the spent blooms look. They have this really kind of fun texture to them that's really fun to use for arrangements. Another patch of Shasta daisies, and then at the end we've got a coneflower, or what's known as echinacea, with a few just a few of these popping up over the top. Oh, sorry, pollinator. But the coneflower is doing really well. Lots of blooms on this. Really happy with how that's looking. So let's head into this area of my Vigo garden beds. I've been super happy with how easy they are to assemble and use. Cosmos. Can we talk about cosmos for a minute? I did not realize how big and robust cosmos would be. So I planted these up with about 3 different flowers, and you can see the cosmos have pretty much taken over the space. I do have some really pretty zinnias here that are popping up behind. So there's a little bit of room for those. And you can see the pollinators are just going nuts off of my cut flower garden, which makes me really happy as a gardener. And I think that my actual vegetable garden is going to do a lot better this year because of all the flowers that I've added to my yard. This is a double click Cosmo from Johnny's, oh, I'm sorry, from Johnny's Seed Company. And so I think they call it a double click because it has that really full look of the Cosmo, and they're just really beautiful. In the next garden bed, you can see things have gotten a little wild, and that would be because of these bachelor buttons. So I've never grown bachelor button before, but I can definitely tell you it's one that needs to be staked up in some kind of way. I'm just kind of letting it do its thing, but it's definitely like draping over this bed. And back behind here, we have a, oh, sorry, pollinator. We've got a salvia that's coming up with the beautiful purple blooms. And then underneath here, there actually is one more flower. And forgive me, I'll put the name on the screen because I'm forgetting it right now. But it's, what is it called? It's got this like, almost like dried appearance. So there's a few of those back in there. But again, the bachelor button has done its job and really taken over the space. So let's continue down and we'll see what else we can find. Gardeners, if there's one cut flower I would highly recommend planting, it's snapdragons. This is my snapdragon cutting patch, and I am just so happy with how it has turned out. I do also have some zinnias in here that are doing their thing, but I just love the snapdragons, and they definitely are a cut and come again flower. So the more you cut, the more blooms you get. They're great in arrangements, and I just think that they're absolutely gorgeous. So definitely, if you've never tried growing snapdragons, I would say give it a try. And then in this last bed over here, you can see this one needs a little bit better staked up here. I've got some fun things. This is a scabiosa that's sort of a midnight, I believe, color. It also is from Johnny's Seeds. And I love the super dark bloom of this. I've been using it in arrangements. And again, even the spent flower, because it's, again, that kind of pincushion look, it can have a really interesting look in arrangements. The white flowers here are a feverfew, and they're about done. You can see I probably need to come back and sort of cut everything back. And then in the back is my gladiolus. So these are bulbs that I planted, and they're just really beautiful. They last a long time in cut arrangements. So if you've never tried gladiolus, I would recommend giving those a try as well. So that kind of does it for this, my cut flower garden area. Let's go see what else we can find in my yard today. All right, so here we've got my bigger vegetable garden, my edible garden, and I've got my potatoes planted up here. They're almost ready to harvest. I'm super excited. Once these flop over, I know that it's time to start harvesting my potatoes, but they still need a few more weeks in the ground. I've got my pumpkin patch here. I planted up probably 5 or 6 different kinds of pumpkins. So come on in here and I'll show you a few that are hiding in the foliage. We've got, if you can see, there's 1, 2 of these cute little decorative white and kind of yellow pumpkins. We've also got one here, you guys. Look at how sweet these are. I can't wait to decorate with them for the fall season. I also have some larger jack-o'-lantern style pumpkins. So if we get back in here, we can see starting to turn orange. It's so exciting, even here in the month of July, that I can think about, you know, harvesting these with my kids, possibly you know, carving some jack-o'-lanterns and decorating for the fall season. It's really exciting to harvest a pumpkin that you've grown from seed. It's a lot different than like going to the pumpkin patch and getting it, even though that's really fun too. There's something about the fact that you grew it yourself. It's just really cool. And then in this garden bed, again, it's kind of hard to see, but these are all my zucchinis. I've got yellow zucchinis and different kinds of, you know, traditional zucchinis. So you can see I've got one little baby on there, and everything is still flowering. I'm going to link a video in the description, or in the description. I do have a video about how to self-pollinate the flowers of squash and pumpkins to give you more fruit and get you that fruit faster in the spring. So I'll link that video down below. That's something I'm continuing to do, which is to use that little paintbrush and help the pollinators out. Although you can see adding the cut flower garden to my yard this year has hugely helped with the amount of pollinators I'm attracting. And then back here in the back, we've got my strawberry patch. Again, I did a video about upgrading my strawberry planters. I'll link that in the description as well. And they seem to be doing really well in those beds. And then lastly, we have this sort of just corner garden, I guess you could call it. I've got another beautiful Japanese maple here, which it's just gotten so big in the last few years. Stay tuned for more videos about Japanese maples. They're one of my passions. And I've got some dianthus planted in here. I've got my bird bath, another calla lily, and just some other really beautiful things. Oh, there is one thing I need to show you. So come here. Check out my elephant ear plant. Can you see the gorgeousness of the elephant ear? So these were a corm that I just got at my local garden center. And there's actually 2 corms in there. So you can see there's 2 different bulbs, I guess you could call them, or corms. And if you come around the other side, I'll show you the kind of other side of the leaves too. And I have to say, it's been really easy to grow, and it's just got these huge, beautiful leaves. And I just love the foliage of this. Over here, we've got a fern that I trim back every year. My fun little urn that I planted up in one of my previous videos. And again, just some dianthus and a few other things here in this little corner garden bed. Yardners, thanks so much for checking out my kind of garden tour for the month of July. I just really wanted to share with you all the beautiful things I have in my yard that are blooming and super happy right now. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, please subscribe to my channel, share it with a friend, give it a like, and stay tuned because pretty soon I'll be doing a video about this lovely structure and giving you a tour of my greenhouse. So you'll want to be sure that you subscribe and get the notification bell so that you can watch that video. I hope that you get out in your yard today. It's a really beautiful place to be. Have a good day, guys. Bye.